This waitress humiliated a man in front of a packed luxury restaurant because of his t-shirt. She pointed, she shouted, and the whole place went silent. But what she didn't know, that same man owned the entire restaurant. And what happened next changed everything. The soft clinking of cutlery and low hum of conversation filled the Grand Oak Bistro, a five-star restaurant known for its luxury and elegance. Wealthy guests, social media influencers, and suited-up executives enjoyed their meals under sparkling chandeliers and golden wall sconces. It was the kind of place where everything ran like clockwork until that moment. "You, get out!" The sudden shout shattered the calm like a glass dropped on marble. Every head turned. Silence fell across the room. A fork dropped to a plate with a loud clink. Even the music faded into the background as all eyes focused on the source of the outburst. The voice came from a waitress, blonde, sharp-featured, and visibly angry. She was pointing across the restaurant at a single man, sitting quietly in the corner. He was a large black man wearing a snug black t-shirt, simple jeans, and a calm expression. The t-shirt had a bold, colorful LGBTQ plus rainbow flag across the chest. The man blinked, clearly confused. He slowly looked to his left, then to his right, to make sure she wasn't speaking to someone else. "Me?" he asked gently. "Yes, you," she snapped, marching toward his table. "This is a respectable place, not a joke." Gasps rippled through the room. Several guests reached for their phones. A couple near the bar opened TikTok instinctively. Conversation stopped. Even the servers froze in place. One man near the back whispered, "Is she really yelling at that guy because of his shirt?" The man at the center of the storm remained composed. He didn't raise his voice, didn't lash out. His brows furrowed slightly, not in anger, but in confusion. "I'm just sitting here," he said, still calm. "You're making people uncomfortable." The waitress barked. "Wearing that, acting like you belong here." Someone near the window said loudly, "He's not bothering anyone." Another guest gave a dirty look to the waitress and shook her head. But the waitress didn't stop. She stood tall, arms crossed. "Look, if you don't leave, I'm calling security." A man seated nearby whispered to his wife, "Wait, isn't that Big Shaq?" Yes, that man, the one being yelled at, was none other than Michael Big Shaq Daniels. But most people didn't recognize him in his casual clothes and quiet demeanor. He was known in business circles as a self-made millionaire, the kind of man who owned gyms, tech startups, clothing brands, and that very restaurant. He had come that day not to dine, but to observe. No one on staff knew he would be there. No one knew he was checking in silently, to see how guests were treated when they weren't rich or dressed in designer clothes. He chose to wear his LGBTQ plus flag shirt proudly, as he always did, to stand for what he believed in: respect, love, and equality. He just didn't expect to be humiliated in front of everyone. The restaurant manager, Greg, stood behind the host's stand, sweating. He recognized Big Shaq the moment the shouting started, but now he was frozen, panicking, trying to figure out how to fix this disaster. Big Shaq looked at him, but said nothing. Instead, he turned to the waitress, who now stood stiff with defiance. "I'm going to ask you just one thing," he said. "Why do you think I don't belong here?" She hesitated, then scoffed. "Because people like you don't usually come in here dressed like that. This is a place for professionals, not activists." The room gasped again. Shaq stood up, slowly and respectfully. Even standing, he didn't try to intimidate, but his presence naturally commanded attention. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a sleek leather wallet. From it, he took a silver business card. He held it up for everyone to see. "My name is Michael Daniels," he said firmly. "Some of you may know me as Big Shaq. I own this restaurant." Total silence. The waitress turned white. The manager took a step forward, as if to explain or apologize, but Shaq held up a hand to stop him. "I came here today to see how guests were treated. All guests. I chose not to wear a suit. I chose to wear this shirt, not as a statement, but because it's who I am and what I stand for." He turned to the crowd, his voice calm but powerful. "Respect, love, inclusion. These aren't just words to me. They're values. And no one, I repeat, no one, should be treated like trash because of a flag on their shirt. The room broke into applause. One woman stood up and shouted, "That's right." Several others clapped. Phones were now fully out. The moment was being recorded from every angle. The waitress opened her mouth, tears forming, and stammered, "I didn't know. I'm so sorry." Big Shaq nodded. "I accept your apology. But this isn't about me. It's about how easily judgment can ruin someone's dignity. Let this be a lesson, not just for you, but for anyone watching." The video of the moment would go viral within hours. Headlines everywhere would say, "Man in LGBTQ shirt kicked out of restaurant. Turns out he owns the place." But the real message wasn't in the twist. It was in the truth. Big Shaq showed the world that power isn't in shouting. It's in staying calm, standing firm, and showing that respect always wins, even when it's not returned at first. He came in wearing a message, and he left making one no one would forget. Now, let's rewind for just a second. You see, Big Shaq wasn't just a random guy in a t-shirt. He wasn't trying to cause a scene. In fact, he wasn't even there to eat. He had shown up quietly to check in on one of his businesses. Yes, Big Shaq was the silent owner of this very restaurant. But he didn't act like a typical rich man. No flashy clothes, no fancy suits. Just a black shirt with a message of pride and inclusivity. Bold, simple, and powerful. A rainbow flag stretched across the chest, standing out not just in color, but in meaning. That day, he had decided to blend in. He left the Rolls-Royce in the garage and walked in on foot. He didn't ask for a reserved table or special service. He simply sat down, smiled at the hostess, and said, "Just one today." Because Big Shaq wasn't there as the boss. He was there as a guest, a regular person. He wanted to see how his staff were treating customers, not the ones in business suits or designer dresses. The everyday people, the ones who didn't look like they had money, the ones who might be judged. He believed a business shows its true colors when no one's looking. Well, he got more than he bargained for. And so did the waitress. From the moment he walked in, her eyes were on him, not with curiosity, but with assumption. She barely greeted him, rolled her eyes when he ordered just water. She didn't smile once. He noticed, but he didn't react. He took mental notes. Every sigh, every eye roll, every moment she skipped his table to attend someone else. It wasn't until he shifted in his chair that the outburst came. Loud, public, embarrassing. "You, get out." It didn't make sense. He hadn't said anything, hadn't raised his voice. He was just sitting, breathing, existing. But to her, he stood out like a sore thumb. Maybe it was the color of his skin. Maybe it was the shirt. Maybe it was both. But something inside her decided he didn't belong. She shouted. She pointed. She humiliated him in front of everyone. And for what? For sitting quietly. Guests began to record. Some whispered. Others looked shocked. But Big Shaq stayed calm. He looked around. Then he looked at her. "Me?" he asked. She doubled down. "Yes, you. This is a respectable place." But in that moment, the tables had turned. Everyone else in the room could see it. She was the one disrespecting the space. She was the one breaking the peace. And then came the reveal. Shaq stood up, reached into his pocket, pulled out a silver business card with his name engraved across the front. Michael Daniels, owner. The room fell silent. The waitress's face went pale. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She took a step back. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't yell. He just explained. He explained that he wore that shirt because he believed in something bigger. Love, equality, acceptance. He explained that he had come in peace, to observe, not to test. He explained that he wanted to build businesses that welcomed everyone. And now he saw the cracks. People clapped. Some stood. One woman near the bar shouted, "Preach!" The waitress, now shaking, tried to apologize. But Big Shaq wasn't cruel. He didn't lash out. He didn't fire her on the spot. Instead, he gave her a lesson. You never know who you're talking to. So treat everyone like they matter. Because they do. The video of the moment? Viral within the hour. The comments poured in. "This man is class." That waitress messed with the wrong one. powerful, calm, inspiring. But the real impact wasn't online. It was in the restaurant. The staff huddled that evening. The manager apologized. Training was ordered. Culture was questioned. And Big Shaq, he left quietly, just like he came. No interviews, no bragging, just a mission fulfilled. Because in the end, he wasn't there to catch someone messing up. He was there to remind them, and all of us, that respect is the real uniform. And kindness, always in style. The waitress didn't stop there. "I don't know what you're trying to prove," she continued, her voice rising with each word, still pointing aggressively at Big Shaq. "But you're making the other guests uncomfortable." The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. People turned their heads. Forks stopped midair. Glasses clinked softly as confused diners exchanged looks. Uncomfortable? That was a stretch. In fact, most of the guests now looked uncomfortable with her behavior, not his. One couple in the corner shook their heads in disbelief. A teenager at a nearby table whispered to his mother, "Why is she yelling at him?" Big Shaq sat still, his large hands folded on the table, his expression unreadable. But his eyes, calm, focused, scanned the room. He wasn't reacting out of anger. He was observing, watching, taking mental notes. He glanced over at the manager, a thin, nervous-looking man who stood frozen near the kitchen entrance. The poor guy looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. His eyes darted from Shaq to the waitress, then to the phones pointed in their direction. "Ma'am," Shaq said, his voice low and composed, "I think you're making this more than it needs to be." But she was past the point of return. "Oh, so now you want to argue?" she snapped, arms folded. "You come in here, looking for trouble, wearing that." She gestured vaguely toward his black t-shirt, where a bold, vibrant LGBTQ plus flag shimmered across the chest. "And now you want to play victim?" The room went still again. This time, it was heavy, like a storm was about to break. People whispered louder now. "Who even is this guy? Why is she so mad about shirt?" "She's yelling at him like he's dangerous or something." Big Shaq didn't move. He just sat there, his face calm, letting the moment play out. He could feel the judgment, the assumptions, not from the guests, but from the one person who was supposed to make him feel welcome. At this point, several customers had stopped eating. One woman angled her phone higher, clearly filming the entire encounter. TikToks were already being uploaded. Comments were starting to fly. But Big Shaq? Still calm, still quiet, because he knew something that no one else in that room did. Not the waitress, not the guests, not even the flustered manager in the corner. This wasn't just some man getting kicked out of a restaurant. This was the owner. You see, Big Shaq wasn't there for a meal. He wasn't craving steak or salmon. He wasn't even there to test the new wine list. He had come in that afternoon, dressed simply, without an entourage, to observe, to see how his staff treated people. All people. No one knew he was the silent partner, the one who funded the sleek interior design, paid for the art on the walls, and even covered salaries during the last tough winter when business was slow. He didn't need anyone to recognize him. But now he was being recognized for all the wrong reasons. The waitress, perhaps sensing she'd gone too far, turned toward the manager. "Are you just going to stand there?" she asked. "He's disrupting the vibe." The manager opened his mouth, closed it. Sweat formed along his temple. Before he could speak, Big Shaq finally stood up. His full height was commanding, tall, broad-shouldered, not intimidating, but powerful. The restaurant grew even quieter. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning now. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a sleek, silver business card. He handed it directly to the waitress. She looked down. Read the words. Blinked. Read them again. Her jaw dropped. The card read, "Michael Big Shaq Daniels, owner and executive partner." Silence. A long, painful silence. Then gasps. The same people who'd whispered minutes earlier now stared wide-eyed. The energy shifted so hard it was like the room had flipped upside down. I didn't know." The waitress stammered, face flushed deep red. Shaq didn't raise his voice. He didn't gloat. He simply looked at her and said, "Exactly. You didn't know." He paused. The moment was thick with tension, with lesson, with truth. You didn't know who I was. But more importantly, you didn't care who I was. Because to you, people like me, wearing a shirt like this, don't belong here." No one moved. "I built this place to welcome everyone," he continued, voice even. "That flag on my chest? That's not just fabric. It's a message that this is a space of dignity, respect, and inclusion. For everyone." The waitress looked like she might cry. She opened her mouth again, but he gently raised a hand. "I'm not here to embarrass you. I'm here to remind you, and everyone, that you never know who you're talking to. So treat everyone like they matter." The restaurant exploded in quiet applause. The same guests she claimed were uncomfortable stood and clapped. One man shouted, "Well said." Another woman wiped away a tear. The waitress turned away, ashamed, while the manager finally stepped forward and whispered something to her. She nodded and hurried toward the kitchen, disappearing behind the swinging doors. Shaq took a breath, gave a polite nod to the diners, and prepared to leave. But before walking out, he turned back. "I'll be back," he said. "But next time, I won't be sitting quietly in the corner." And with that, he walked out, not just as a boss, but as a message that went viral, a moment the internet wouldn't forget. But more importantly, a reminder to the world, respect isn't earned by titles or money. It's earned by how you treat people when you think no one's watching. Just as things were spiraling and tension stretched thin across the sleek marble floor of the five-star restaurant, Big Shaq stood up. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He simply rose to his full height, towering over the table, calm and collected, a quiet storm. The clatter of silverware stopped. Even the hum of low background music seemed to fade. Shaq glanced at the manager in the corner, who looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. With a calm nod, Shaq asked, "Can I borrow your mic for a second?" The manager, wide-eyed and sweating, didn't ask a single question. He walked over and handed Shaq the microphone used for birthday announcements and dinner specials. Shaq turned to the stunned crowd and lifted the mic. "Hi, everyone. Sorry to interrupt your meals," he began, his deep voice echoing gently through the room. "I just want to introduce myself. My name is Michael Big Shaq Daniels. And, well, I actually own this restaurant." Gasps rippled across the dining room, like waves crashing on shore. One woman dropped her fork. The waitress, standing frozen like a statue, turned pale. Her mouth parted slightly, as if to say something, but nothing came out. Shaq continued, his tone composed but firm. "I came in today in regular clothes to see how the staff treated people, all people." He gestured to his black t-shirt, where the LGBTQ plus rainbow flag stretched proudly across his chest. Apparently, some of them believe that a shirt with a rainbow on it is a problem. I don't. Silence. Complete silence. The statement hung in the air like a truth bomb, unavoidable, undeniable. Shaq let the words settle before continuing. "I wear this shirt because I believe in kindness, in respect, in people being allowed to be who they are without being judged or kicked out of a place they came to enjoy." A woman near the front whispered to her friend, "That's actually beautiful." Shaq turned and glanced back at the waitress, who now looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "I built this restaurant from nothing," Shaq said. "Every table, every plate, every paycheck, I make sure it's all top quality. But I care more about who we serve than how we serve." He let that land, then added, "If you don't stand for that, for basic decency, inclusivity, and respect, you won't work here." That was it. Like a match to dry wood, the room ignited. Applause erupted from the back tables first, then the middle, and then the entire restaurant. Some stood, some clapped. One man whistled. The vibe had completely flipped in seconds. People who had been uncomfortable earlier were now smiling, even cheering. The manager stepped forward with a nod of deep respect, visibly relieved that someone had spoken the truth, and not just anyone, but the owner. The waitress turned and walked briskly toward the back, shoulders hunched, disappearing into the staff hallway. No one stopped her. Shaq handed the mic back, then turned once more to the crowd. "Thank you," he said with a warm smile. "Enjoy your meals. And remember, kindness is always on the menu here." With that, He returned to his seat, picked up his glass of water, and sipped it like nothing had happened. Except something had happened. In that short span of time, the energy in the restaurant had shifted. Guests started talking again, not about food or business deals, but about how powerful that moment was. Phones buzzed as recordings were shared. TikToks went live. By the end of the night, the video of Big Shaq standing up for respect and inclusivity had gone viral. Millions viewed it. Thousands commented. Big Shaq for president. Respect. This man just taught a whole lesson without raising his voice. But beyond the viral moment, the message echoed louder. You never know who's watching. You never know who you're speaking to. And more importantly, you never know whose life might change because someone chose to stand up instead of staying silent. That night, the restaurant didn't just serve good food. It served a slice of reality, a wake-up call, and a powerful reminder that sometimes the quietest person in the room has the loudest truth to speak. Just as things were spiraling and tension stretched thin across the sleek marble floor of the five-star restaurant, Big Shaq stood up. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He simply rose to his full height, towering over the table, calm and collected, a quiet storm. The clatter of silverware stopped. Even the hum of low background music seemed to fade. Shaq glanced at the manager in the corner, who looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. With a calm nod, Shaq asked, "Can I borrow your mic for a second?" The manager, wide-eyed and sweating, didn't ask a single question. He walked over and handed Shaq the microphone used for birthday announcements and dinner specials. Shaq turned to the stunned crowd and lifted the mic. "Hi, everyone. Sorry to interrupt your meals," he began, his deep voice echoing gently through the room. "I just want to introduce myself. My name is Michael Big Shaq Daniels. And, well, I actually own this restaurant." Gasps rippled across the dining room, like waves crashing on shore. One woman dropped her fork. The waitress, standing frozen like a statue, turned pale. Her mouth parted slightly, as if to say something, but nothing came out. Shaq continued, his tone composed but firm. "I came in today in regular clothes to see how the staff treated people, all people." He gestured to his black t-shirt, where the LGBTQ plus rainbow flag stretched proudly across his chest. Apparently, some of them believe that a shirt with a rainbow on it is a problem. I don't. Silence. Complete silence. The statement hung in the air like a truth bomb, unavoidable, undeniable. Shaq let the words settle before continuing. "I wear this shirt because I believe in kindness, in respect, in people being allowed to be who they are without being judged or kicked out of a place they came to enjoy." A woman near the front whispered to her friend, "That's actually beautiful." Shaq turned and glanced back at the waitress, who now looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "I built this restaurant from nothing," Shaq said. "Every table, every plate, every paycheck, I make sure it's all top quality. But I care more about who we serve than how we serve." He let that land, then added, "If you don't stand for that, for basic decency, inclusivity, and respect, you won't work here." That was it. Like a match to dry wood, the room ignited. Applause erupted from the back tables first, then the middle, and then the entire restaurant. Some stood, some clapped. One man whistled. The vibe had completely flipped in seconds. People who had been uncomfortable earlier were now smiling, even cheering. The manager stepped forward with a nod of deep respect, visibly relieved that someone had spoken the truth, and not just anyone, but the owner. The waitress looked like she had seen a ghost. She stumbled forward, tears in her eyes. I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought you were. You thought I didn't belong," Shaq finished for her, "because I didn't fit your idea of who belongs in this space." She nodded, trembling. "I'm so sorry." Big Shaq nodded too. Not angry, not cruel, just honest. "I believe in second chances. But this needs to be a lesson." No one said a word. The room remained frozen, watching as an employee faced a moment of deep reflection. Shaq handed the mic back, then turned once more to the crowd. "Thank you," he said with a warm smile. "Enjoy your meals. And remember, kindness is always on the menu here." With that, he returned to his seat, picked up his glass of water, and sipped it like nothing had happened. Except something had happened. In that short span of time, the energy in the restaurant had shifted. Guests started talking again, not about food or business deals, but about how powerful that moment was. Phones buzzed as recordings were shared. TikToks went live. By the end of the night, the video of Big Shaq standing up for respect and inclusivity had gone viral. Millions viewed it. Thousands commented. Big Shaq for president. Respect. This man just taught a whole lesson without raising his voice. The waitress later posted a public apology. She admitted her mistake. She shared how the experience had opened her eyes and how she had started reading, attending inclusivity training, and making a conscious effort to be better. She owned up to her bias, her assumptions, and promised to unlearn them. I judged someone based on how they looked, she wrote, and I nearly lost everything for it. I'm thankful he showed me grace, even when I didn't deserve it. The comments under her video were mixed, but many encouraged her growth. Accountability matters, one person wrote, and you're showing it. Big Shaq responded too, not with anger, but with a short message. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Just make sure you grow in the right direction. And with that, a moment that could have been just another viral outrage turned into something more, a turning point, a reminder, a spark of change. Because kindness, respect, and humility never go out of style. And sometimes, the person you underestimate turns out to be the one holding the keys, not just to the restaurant, but to the lesson you needed all along. In a world quick to judge by appearances, Big Shaq proved that true power lies in patience, respect, and leading by example. He didn't just own the restaurant. He owned the moment. What would you have done in that situation? Let us know in the comments below. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire change.